Welcome everybody to MVP Toastmasters and our special event. We're really hugely happy to have Freddi in the house today, and Christine will talk a little bit about Freddi in a minute when she introduces her. My name is Matthew Fox, your Sergeant at Arms. Most people know me as Matt. That's Matt 2 T's. I'm not a doormat, floor mat, or beer mat. I am Matt 2 T's. I'd just like to cover a couple of items before we get going. The first is, if you have a phone, please put it on silent or turn it off. If you need to know where the washrooms are, they're straight up this passage right here. Take a left, gents and then ladies. There is others around, but that should be sufficient. If we take a break, there is a refreshments area out the front here where there's water and there's coffee in cups. Cream is in the fridge. As is the standard practice at Fleur, I'd like to go a quick safety topic. I'm going to cover two things. The first is, if this is the first time to the building, welcome. If there is reason to leave it in an emergency, we're going to take the passageway to the left of this door here, take a left at the next junction, and then take us out to the side here at the fire exit. Gather on the car park and make sure everybody's here. So please make notice of who's next to you so you can account for each other. That brings me to my other safety topic, and the title of that is, Who's Got Your Back? Very much just to what I just said, actually. But people go hiking up in the hills, and sometimes you lose cell phone coverage. Who's got your back? Who knows where you are? Who knows when you're coming back? Who knows what your route is? If you're traveling, and we travel a fair bit in the company here, who knows which country you're in? Do you know how to get hold of somebody when you're there? Do you have your cell phone coverage, etc.? And personally, my father's in the UK. He's going through a bit of an issue at the moment. Who's got his back? Unfortunately, I've got siblings, sisters over there at the moment, and they're dealing with something. I won't go into the detail for that, but who's got your back? Just think about that when you're going around doing things, and make sure that you've got cover. We're going to move straight on, and I would like to introduce our event chair today, a personal friend, my inspiration, my motivation within Toastmasters, accomplished Toastmaster, educator and contributor to the wider community that is Toastmasters. But what makes her stand out is her selfless commitment to others. Please welcome Christina Bruce.
We are so happy you're here tonight. How many people are in this building for the first time? Wonderful. We welcome you. How many people were in Medicine Hat at the convention, conference, whatever it was? So I want to tell you a little story about how this all happened. Freddi, obviously you know, is an accredited speaker, and so much so that if you have your Toastmaster magazine, she was one of 6 featured in January. How many people have seen this? Yes! And I said, yeah, and she's coming to our club, how cool! So I'm telling everybody about this. This is fantastic. But we talked in Medicine Hat, and Freddi talked a lot, and she's going to give us more details today about the accredited speaker. What number is she? 75. Yes. That's it in the world. 75 people have this. Not enough Canadians, and apparently not enough women. So women and Canadians, well done for being here. So when we were chatting, I said, you need to come to Calgary, because this is what we do at MVP. We are keynoters, and that's your audience. So here she is tonight, and we are absolutely thrilled. Interesting, Matt called me selfless, because this is what I think is selfless. Freddi is an accomplished speaker. She gets paid for speaking, and that is amazing. But what's even more amazing is she's willing to share it with you so that you could do the same. And I love when I see somebody pull somebody else up instead of step on them so I can get to the top. So that is Freddi. Here is her introduction, because if you are a good speaker, you write your own introduction, and if you're a good introducer, you don't ad lib. You do, so that the audience is set up ready. In 2005, April, the letter arrived. Thank you for your application. We regret to inform you that your presentation did not pass level 1 judging. Well, she thought to herself, it will be a frosty Friday before I try that again. But the spark had been ignited, and our guest was on a quest. Freddi started to study the accredited speaker program, explore why she had failed, and how to be successful next time. This evening, we are privileged to hear the journey from a frosty Friday to a sunny Saturday. Distinguished Toastmaster Freddi Dogterom will share both her learnings and the insights being successful in achieving the highest earned speaking designation in Toastmasters, the accredited speaker. There will be lots of time for questions, so gather your pens and papers for note-taking and be educated, and I can totally vouch for this, entertained. This is one of the most dynamic people we have in District 42. Please help me welcome Freddi Dogterom, Beyond the Frosty Friday.
Well, thank you, MVP. It is so wonderful to see all of the next accredited speakers sitting here right in front of me. We need more. And Christina's right, we need more women, we need more Canadians. There's only 12 Canadians that are accredited speakers out of the 75. And in the world, there's only 10 of us that are women. So ladies, there's lots of room for you as well. It's my privilege to be here to talk about the Accredited Speaker Program, which is the accreditation for professional speakers with Toastmasters International. You can go up through the education process and become a distinguished Toastmaster, and then you say to yourself, now what? Right? Now what? Well, if you want to be a professional speaker, perhaps you want to look at the Accredited Speaker Program. And that's what I'm going to be talking to you this evening about. I'm hoping to keep it more or less informal, and I certainly welcome your questions as I go through. Just, give me the high sign, wave, shout at me, you'll throw something, whatever, get my attention. Because at my age, if I try to hold a question, I forget. And so I just assume that everybody else is the same. So please don't hold your questions. I want to talk a little bit about what is a professional speaker, because sometimes people are a little confused as to what's the difference between a really good Toastmaster or a professional speaker or a really good amateur or, a teacher that goes out on stage. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what is a professional speaker. How do you get on the road? How do you get opportunities to speak and on a good day get paid to do that? So I'm going to talk a little bit about where to find some of these opportunities. Maybe you're wondering why. Why would a person put themselves through this? Because it is a very grueling process. Why on earth would you want to do that? I'm hoping to answer that question for you. I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey. In Christina's introduction, she mentioned that in 2005, I got my first, but not my last, rejection in the program. And so I'm going to be sharing a little bit about that. We're then going to talk specifically about the how-to. How do you become an accredited speaker? What do you have to do? What are some of the pitfalls? And that's the handout that you have, has some of the key points about how to get in the program. And then taking a look at, well, now that you're accredited speakers, what's next? So that's what I'm going to be doing. We're going to be having a break partway through. And Christina says that apparently your meetings only go until 10 p.m. Is that correct? All right. No. Oh, okay, well, that's good because I have to drive home tonight. So let's get started. What is the difference between an amateur and a professional? Well, I figured that this was a good seasonal picture. I am an amateur snow shoveler. I hate shoveling snow. As you can see, my shovel's really crappy. And so what I do is I get the professionals in. One of our Toastmasters owns Lawn and Snow Bros, and I go out in the morning at 6 a.m. and my driveway is already shoveled. The wind blows in Lethbridge and it drifts in. I go outside and my driveway is shoveled out. That's the difference between an amateur and a professional. So what is the difference then between an amateur speaker and a professional speaker? Some people think it's just the difference as to whether or not you get paid. Well, if you are a professional, ideally you are getting paid for your services, but it goes beyond that. It's the preparation, it's the attitude, it's the willingness to do anything and go anywhere practically at the drop of a hat in order to best serve your clients and customers. And one of the qualifications or one of the qualities of a professional speaker is that they are involved with and engaged in a professional association. So whether it's Toastmasters or the Global Federation of Professional Speakers or the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, I believe that professionals, whoever you are, support your industry's association. If you're an engineer, it's the engineer. If it's the accountants, it's the accountants. If you're a speaker, it's the speakers. So let's dig a little bit deeper. I've been speaking at the professional level. I've been a paid speaker for over 20 years. Initially, when I started, I thought I was pretty good. I did. I mean, how many people here think you're pretty good? Come on. Some of you have been on the world competition stage and everything. You're pretty good, right? Well, pretty good is a nice place to start, but pretty good doesn't get you invited back. And that was a hard lesson to learn. And so that is why I joined Toastmasters 14 years ago, because I didn't want to be pretty good. I wanted to be better. And then I wanted to get to the point where every time I was speaking, I was working towards achieving my personal best. Sort of like a figure skater or a snowboarder. We've just had the Olympics. That's what I wanted to work towards. So that's why I joined Toastmasters. I was already a paid professional, but I knew that Toastmasters had something to offer me. I am just absolutely shocked, dazzled, and amazed with some of my professional speaking colleagues, and they go, Toastmasters? Who needs Toastmasters? Well, you do. Where else can you get the education program that we have? Well, you can't. And it's a pretty good value. Where else can you get top-level feedback and evaluations? Nowhere else. I'm so thankful to all of you that were at the spring convention last year where I got to be the Friday night entertainment. And I got to practice my presentation for the accredited speaker. That was worth its weight in gold to me. Because what I took away from that allowed me to then practice proficiently and properly and get prepared. Where could you get that except in Toastmasters? So I thank each and every one of you that has been on the journey with me. Now, how many people here are paid professional speakers? Excellent. And how many would like to work in that direction? Excellent. Well, here's the secret. Here's the secret. Some people are worried that if they encourage other people to be paid professional speakers, that everybody's going to have a piece of the pie and there isn't going to be any pie left over. But guess what? I think the more we get, the more professional speakers we have, the bigger the pie gets. So I think we need to make this pie absolutely immense. So I'm here to serve you. Where do you find opportunities? Well, I call it being in the pits. Have you had those days? We're in the pits. Well, in speaking, pits means putting in time speaking. This is speaking in small venues. This is speaking for the Chamber of Commerce. This is speaking for the Women's Curling Championship. This is speaking anytime you can get a little piece of stage and an opportunity to present. Usually you are not paid. Oftentimes what they'll say is, well, we'll give you dinner and gas. I'm going like, oh, that sounds attractive. But do whatever you can. I think it was Darren LaCroix that says any stage time is stage time. And so as you're getting beyond being just good, as you're working towards better, any opportunity. Get invited to MVP Toastmasters in Calgary. I've heard that they are an amazing group. They're wonderful. But speaking at conferences, doing the education sessions. Can you volunteer to do presentations at work, at your church, for your women's association, for Kiwanis, for the Lions Club? Can you go on the rubber chicken circuit where you're speaking for your supper? This is an excellent training ground. Well, how do you find these opportunities? Put yourself out there. Let everybody know. For 30 years, I worked as a career development professional. That's my occupation. I helped build people so that they could get on with their lives occupationally. And what we would say is, if you're looking for a job, first of all, the best time to find a job is when you've got one right now. I hope there's no bosses in here, but the best time to find a job is the first day you start your new job. But we would say to people, just put your name out there. Let people know. That's where Toastmasters and the network that we have in our organization, 350,000 people around the world in 141 countries. You think there isn't opportunities? Sure there is. But get your name out there. Volunteer to speak at different things. Maybe you have to drive a little bit out of your way. So what? It's an opportunity. I live in Lethbridge, and if I'm competing against people in Calgary, I have to tack 5 hours on just for travel, just to get on the same playing field. Is it worth it to me? You bet it is. You bet it is, because you know what I do in that 5 hours when I'm traveling? I talk to myself. In a structured way. I am always practicing presentations, always. And if you were in the car driving along beside me, you'd think I was a little bit nuts. Because not only am I practicing the words, but I'm practicing the gestures and all sorts of stuff as I'm driving. I use every opportunity that I can. So if you're looking at going from where you are now, I certainly encourage you to start looking everywhere you can for opportunities. Number 2, enter every Toastmaster contest that you can. That is so developmental. So what if you don't win? It doesn't matter. As long as you enter, you don't lose. Because you will learn so much. Whether it's evaluation, international speech, humorous contests, table topics, whatever it is. Every time you enter a contest, your skills get that much sharper and that much sharper. And then, like some of the people in the world here, or in the room here, you might go on to the world stage. How awesome is that? You see, that also gets your name out there. Because in Toastmasters, we're not like gingerbread men. Right? Toastmasters come from every occupation and walk of life, and they're here, there, and everywhere. I was on a cruise at Christmas time, and I was sitting there minding my own business, thinking of Russ Dantu, drinking beer and eating cookies. And I glanced up, and here was a T-shirt. And on the back of it, it had this map, and it said District 21. And I'm looking at it and I'm going like, I wonder if. So I went over and said, excuse me, sir, are you a Toastmaster? And he was. He was a district governor from District 21 in the east coast of the U.S. We had a really, really nice visit. So there's Toastmasters everywhere, even when you're cruising. They're everywhere. But just get your name out there. Let people in your club know that you're interested in some opportunities. Let them tell 2 friends and tell 2 friends, etc. So are there lots of opportunities to practice, to speak for free, to do the pits? Absolutely. They don't always come knocking on your door. Sometimes you have to take that bold step forward and say, you know what? I'd like to give that a try. Can I do an ed session? And then follow through on it. 2015, that was the first time that I was on an international world stage. Wow. Some of you might have been at the spring convention in Lethbridge in 2014. I did a keynote, and just that day, I had received the notification that I had passed the level 1, and I was therefore eligible to apply to present at level 2 for the accredited speaker, which means that at my own expense, I got to go to wherever the international convention was being held and present and hopefully be able to achieve the accredited speaker. So in 2015, it was in Las Vegas, Caesar's Palace, and man, that's a big stage. Huge, isn't it, Russ? Oh yeah, it was big. And I gave what I thought was the best doggone presentation that I could. I thought I was spot on. Man, I had tried everything. It was a crowd pleaser. I gave my Inukshuk keynote and the audience loved it. But one judge didn't. All it takes is one judge, because the accredited speaker program is different from the contest because it's going for an earned designation. It is judged at 2 levels by a panel of judges. And I'll get into that when I talk a little bit more about how to apply for the accredited speaker. Gave the presentation, and then the judges sequestered themselves and they chatted about the 3 presentations that they'd heard. And they said, well, we will phone you with the results. So I was walking down the hallway with all of the flags of the world and my phone rang. And so I answered it. Hello, this is Freddi. Oh, hi, Freddi. This is Toastmasters International. We have the results from the accredited speaker presentation for you. I says, just a minute. And so I went in behind the flags. I think I hid behind Bahrain or someplace. I can't even remember what flag I hid behind because I knew that I had rocked it. I did. I knew it. I knew it. And she says, I regret to inform you that you have not been successful, but we do invite you to try again. What do you do when your hopes, your dreams, your desires, your heart is just crushed into this crinkly little macerated ball? Ideally, what you've done is beforehand, you have prepared yourself. That win or lose, you are going to give yourself 1 hour to process the emotions. And that's what I did. I went to my room. Went to my room because win or lose, I was, succeed or fail, I was going to give myself time to process the emotion because I am a professional. Right? You don't throw your emotional euphoria or disappointment out into your audience. You process it yourself. And so I texted my husband and I says, well, you might as well take the champagne out of the fridge. And he comes back and says, no, it sounds like we really need it now. Love that man. And so I gave myself time to process the emotions and I went back down to the rest of the conference. The results were not going to be announced until the following day. So we couldn't say anything. We could not say anything. So I had to sit, and people are coming up, and they're wonderful, like, oh, Freddi, you rocked it. I know you got it. Oh, man, you were so awesome. You're a rock star. Loved your presentation. It was so great. And I'm sitting there, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Smile and be gracious. The next day when the results were announced and they said only one person had been successful, there was this in the room. And actually, Toastmasters International did have to do a little bit of damage control about it. And I immediately announced that, hey, no problem, I'm going to go for it next year. Not a problem. And enjoyed the rest of the time. Was I disappointed? Absolutely. It took me 4 months before I could even watch the video. It took me 4 months before I could watch the video. And then one day I sat down and I watched it. And I had the judges' criteria in front of me. I'm going, I can see where that one judge possibly could have made the comments that she made. Because you see, you get the judges' comments. You get the sheet with the judges' comments. Unlike a contest, you get the feedback. And I knew that the one judge probably walked with a limp and wore white ankle socks, but I didn't hold that against her. Because when I read this, I went, yes, fail and learn. Always fail forward, fail and learn. And so I took that into account as I started preparing for my next attempt. Now, I didn't go to Washington, D.C. in 2016. Life interfered with that. But I wanted to go to Vancouver. I wanted to get my accredited speaker designation in Canada. And that became my goal. We have to have goals. And so what happened? Well, in 2017, I was back there on the world stage. And here's the interesting thing. One of the biggest lessons that I learned on that stage at Caesar's Palace is that when you're on a stage that big, and I know Joanne and Russ can talk about this, you cannot see or hear the audience. There is so much electronic noise that you can neither hear nor see the audience. And you see, I depend on the little ahas and ums and, the feedback from the audience. Nothing, just a bzzz, electronic hum. And everybody looked like Charlie Brown's mother. The little moon faces in the dark there. And so that was a very, very good lesson to produce a presentation that did not depend on the audience feedback. So in 2017, I presented a custom designed program that I had created and crafted specifically for that Vancouver presentation. And I'll talk a little bit more about how I did that. So what happened in 2017? I aced it. Yes! I did it. And I am not embarrassed to say that it was euphoric. It felt so good. I couldn't control my knees for about 3 hours. But you know what? I took myself away for an hour and I processed the emotions. And then I came back and was very happy and glad. But I processed the emotions because that's what you need to do. So I was honored to become the 75th accredited speaker in the world. Thank you. Now, how did I get to be number 75? The candidates were sitting in a line, and they came along and they went 71, 72, 73, 74, 75. That's how I got to be number 75. I could have been 70, or I could have been 69 or 72, but no, I got to be 75 just because of where I was sitting. How cool is that? So what were some of the things that I did? What were some of the things that I learned? Well, the accredited speaker program requires you to be a subject matter expert. So start thinking about what is your area of expertise? What is it that you are expert in? In 2015, when I delivered my keynote, that it's a killer keynote, people love it. But it's about relationships, and it's more of a touchy-feely, feel-goody kind of keynote. Very popular with women's conferences, etc. It's a great keynote. But it was not an accredited speaker keynote. Because the one judge says, I had no idea what the point was. I had no idea what the point was. What is your expertise? It wasn't clearly defined. So the first thing I knew is that I had to clearly define my area of expertise. Well, you can't get as old as me without having a few areas of expertise, so I had to figure out which one I wanted to focus on. And so what I did is that I crafted the introduction, and although Christina did a fabulous job, and I knew that Margaret Page, who is the lady in the picture with me, she was the MC, I knew that she would do a fabulous job, but I left nothing, absolutely nothing to chance. And so what I did is that I crafted a series of slides. I got a professional radio personality to do a voiceover for me so that my introduction stood out from the others, because people are going like, whoa, look at that. Let's take a look at some of the things that I did, and then I'll share my introduction with you. So first of all, I read and I understood all the rules. Here's my books. This is what I studied to become an accredited speaker, okay? I not only knew some of the rules, I knew all of the rules, and I could recite them from a dead sleep at midnight. Freddi, wake up. What's rule 4? I can tell you. Okay, so I read and understood all the rules, because at either level, that's what disqualifies people. Less than 0.02% of the people that apply for level 1 are successful, oftentimes because they haven't read the rules. So rules are very important. I also focused on one area of expertise. Well, I've been in career development for many, many years, and career is not your job or occupation. Career is your life path. And so now I am focusing on retirement lifestyle planning. Not the money, the time. The financial services industry is doing a great job with the money part of things. Can I talk about the money part? Absolutely. But what I absolutely rock at is taking a look at the time element, because you are going to be gifted with an extra 300, 400 hours a month. What the heck are you going to do with that? Go home, fight with your spouse, and get a silver divorce? No. You'll have a great life, and I'm the one that can help you with that. So I focused on one area of expertise. I wrote articles. I started to really establish myself as the expert. I write for magazines and newspapers. I haven't been featured in Costco magazine yet, but that's coming. I write for the Canadian Institute of Financial Planners. I belong to that association. I got credentials in retirement lifestyle planning. So I started very strategically and specifically positioning myself as the go-to expert in this particular topic. So if you're thinking about coming down the accredited speaker road, which I hope you are, start really thinking about narrowing down. Develop a laser focus as to what area of expertise you want to really develop. I also practiced all the time. I practiced at the club, at the convention. I would go and visit other Toastmaster clubs. I'd go to Rotary, and anywhere. I went back to my pits days. Went back to my pits, and I started practicing my accredited speaker speech. And I got feedback, and you guys have the circle of gold here. You guys are amazing. Thank you. I love you all. Because it was feedback that allowed me then to do the tweaking and the figuring and okay, well, if I change this, or no, you know what? I appreciate your feedback, but I'm not changing that. So that allowed me to really, really hone and sift and winnow. And I had that gold pan out there, and I was just picking all of these nuggets specific to this presentation. Now, one of the things that threw me off, and it threw me off in 2015 as well, is that I'm a keynote speaker. I speak for 60 to 90 minutes. Those are my presentations. When I write a keynote, when I'm putting it together, it's for, 45 to 60 to 90 minutes, and I have it broken up so I can put in, take out stories, sort of plug and play, depending on how much time I have. Because if the CEO goes on and on and on and on, and the meeting planner says, sorry, Freddi, you've only got 45 minutes, I can adjust. The accredited speaker presentation is only 20 minutes. Harsh editing. And in 2015, part of what got me, led me to be unsuccessful is that the editing that I did wasn't necessarily as crisp and clean as it should have been. The other thing is that I listened to people right up until the day before, and I changed the first 5 minutes of my speech the night before. What was I thinking? And so for the first 5 minutes, I'm going like, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel good, but I'm on this big stage and Charlie Brown's mother's out there somewhere. And I'm going like, oh my gosh. So 2 lessons: crisp, clean editing, and lock it down 10 days out. Lock it down 10 days out, and then I'll tell you a little bit about my process as well. And so I had to craft something that was only 20 minutes. Now, if you're used to 5 to 7 minutes, you're going like, whoa, 20 minutes, who on earth could talk that long? Oh, I can. But also, this speech I had used as a series of articles for the Canadian Institute of Financial Planners. So I had lots of content and stories that I could sift through. And I was also building it so that I now have it as an hour keynote. More Than Money is also an hour keynote. But I was crafting it and building it specifically to be 20 minutes. Yes, sir?
You just said you were building it for an hour keynote, yet your focus was a 20-minute speech. So why were you building an hour keynote when you really ought to be building a 20-minute speech?
I was building the 20-minute speech, but I wasn't going to waste a year of effort and not get compensated for it down the road. And so one of the programs I teach is how to use the Lego approach to building speeches. And so I was building it so that I can plug in this, make it longer, plug in this, make it longer, plug in this, make it longer. Okay, so it's done in modules. It's a modular speech. So I can make it 90 minutes, 45, 20, whatever. But it was being crafted for the 20 minutes. I also can't spell. I also got feedback from workshops because I do full-day workshops on retiring to the life you love and talking, to individuals who are from 50 years up and looking at how can I start planning and getting ready now for when I am retired, whatever that looks like. And so I was getting feedback from all of the participants in my workshops, and I do dozens of them every year. And so I was getting all of this feedback as well. So not only was I working to establish myself as the expert and crafting, but I was also drawing from the people who would be my future audiences as well. So when you're starting to pull your presentation together, really think about who is going to be your end user audience. Because the third mistake that I made is that I took my professional speech and turned it into a Toastmaster speech. Now, I don't mean that to be derogatory, but there's different sets of skills. Toastmasters is just a style. It's just a style. It's a good style, and it's a great way to learn, but it's just a style. So in the accredited speaker, they say, don't take your speech and modify it for a Toastmaster audience. Use it as a professional level speech for one of your typical audiences. So I tried to Toastmasterize it, and that came out in the judges' comments as well. And I crafted. What does crafted mean? Well, it means going beyond writing. Yes, I wrote it all out, and I wrote it and practiced, and I edited, and I brought stories in, and I took stories out, and I ran it through Circle of Gold, and I ran it through my own club. They got sick of me, I can tell you, but they're wonderful people. And everybody that had a set of ears, I got them to listen to it. And I learned and took away and sifted and winnowed. My girlfriend is a concert pianist, and from the time we were little girls, I think she was born with piano in her hand. But that was always her dream, to be a concert pianist, and she achieved it. You know, she went to her master's program in Toronto, and she did her PhD in London and had a part-time job playing the organ at Westminster Abbey for Wednesday Mass. That was her part-time job. And then she went on the world tour and she got to play all over. So she's a pretty good piano player. And one day I said to her, I says, Brenda, how do you stay so excited about playing piano and so crisp? And she says, well, it's purposeful practice. I said, really? What's that? I hadn't heard about purposeful practice. She says, well, it is practicing on purpose, because you can practice, right? You can practice, practice. But if you're playing it wrong, all you're going to do is get really, really good at being really, really bad. And it's the same with the speech. You can take a speech and you can practice it and practice it and practice it, and it'll still suck. It'll still be a terrible speech. And so this notion of purposeful practice was a notion that I embraced. And so anything that I was being repetitive about, I knew that I had perfected it, or had it as perfect as it could get at that moment in time. And then it would move on from there. So some of the things that I did is that I would obviously talk to myself a lot, but I also listened to myself a lot. I would speak my speech, once I had it crafted and thought it was pretty darn good, into my iPhone, and I'd go for a walk. And I would listen to myself, listen to myself, listen to myself, listen to myself. I went on the Smedley 5K in Vancouver, and I listened to myself 3 times while I was on the Smedley. The last thing at night, I'd fire up my laptop with my slides, and I'd give myself my presentation. First thing in the morning, I'd fire up the laptop, do the slides, do the presentation. The rest of the day, I'd be listening to myself or speaking to myself probably between 20 and 30 times. That is purposeful practice. How many of you know somebody, of course nobody in this room, know somebody that will give a club level speech with no practice time at all? Yeah. What kind of results or outcomes do you think that they're getting over the long haul? It's the practice that makes you good, and it's the purposeful practice that can really drive improvement. I also got a coach. I got an absolute rock star coach. My coach was actually Brian Tracy's coach when Brian Tracy was first starting out. And this guy just happens to be a Toastmaster. He was also a leader in his industry, and he took me under his wing, and he held my feet to the fire. I used to be 6'2", now I'm 5'4", and I can thank my coach for that, because he burned off about a foot of my legs. But I'm so thankful that he did that. And it wasn't always easy to hear. It wasn't always easy to hear, but I gave him permission. I says, you know what, don't candy coat it. Because candy coating is not going to get me to my goal. I just want, be kind, but just tell me like it is. And so we would go over and over and over, and I'd videotape and I'd send it to him, and he'd go back, that sucked, try again. Okay, I'd try again. And so everything was choreographed, and every word and pause and story and phrase was very, very carefully pulled together and crafted. I also learned that not just with my accredited speech, but for my other keynotes, my other professional speeches, I've started doing exactly that same thing with them, and I'm getting better. Who knew, right? Who knew? Thought I was good, and I'm getting better, because you're putting the work into it, but you're putting it in with purpose and with diligence. Yes?
Freddi, when you got a coach, was
Yes.
it somebody that was already accredited?
No. I had talked to other accredited speakers, and I had done coaching with them, there's no question, about the program. But just because of my work schedule, I'm on the road a lot, and just because of my work schedule and everything, I couldn't always connect with one of the other accredited speakers. And so my speech coach was for accredited speaker, but also for my professional products as well. Yeah. And I'm going to be talking about the coaching because, yes, there's quite a number of the accredited speakers that are available for coaching, myself included. Yeah. And this whole notion of purposeful practice, that was the turning point for me. I know that some of you have gone to the World Championship of Public Speaking and you know what purposeful practice is. But now bring it to other parts of your life as well. This is the book that my coach insisted that I read. It's Peak, How to Master Almost Anything by Anders Ericsson. This is an amazing, amazing book. This formed the backbone of my purposeful practice. So I did all of this and delivered it many, many times. For sure 15 times with high-level feedback. One of the things that I learned from Russ Dantu, and Russ, you are never going to live this down, and that is, I like sparkles. You can probably tell I like sparkles, but Russ, he gave me the best feedback ever. The best feedback, and when I share this with people, they go like, oh, that is the best feedback ever. I was wearing a sparkly jacket, and he says, you've got so many sparkles, I can't hear you. And he went on, he had some excuse about ADD or something like that. But that resonated. And so I went back to my coach and I says, hey, Russ said he couldn't hear me because I sparkle too much. And he goes, he says, that's a good point. A real good point. You think about your audience, you don't know who's out there. One of the things I know for sure, and that is if a person is hard of hearing, they will always sit at the back. They do. I don't know, all the deaf guys head for the back. I'm not sure what that's about. But you don't know if there's other people that are going to be distracted by either A, your mannerisms, or your sparkly jacket or whatever. So that was absolutely killer feedback. And so now I wear sparkles in different places, like from the waist down so that Russ doesn't get distracted. But you think about the different levels of feedback you get. You always think about it. And then you either go, you know what, that makes a whole bunch of sense. Or, I don't think so, it doesn't work for me. But that whole sparkle thing, and then Russ, just so that you know, I've been giving you credit for this. I talked to some of my professional colleagues, and they said, that makes a whole lot of sense. Little bit of sparkle, okay, but this thing practically glowed in the dark, the jacket that I was wearing. And so just, being moderate. Wonderful lessons that you can learn. The other thing that I did is that I owned the speech, or the speech owned me. My goal was to get to the point where anybody could wake me up at midnight and say, give me your speech, and I could just jump out of bed and give them the speech. Yeah. Now, hopefully I wasn't driving when you woke me up, but that's the depth that I needed that speech. It became part of my DNA. And so it owned me and I owned it. And I could comfortably walk down the street giving my speech. I could see the slides in my head. I could see the stories. I could see the people. I could taste the flowers. Everything was so real. So why don't we do this with every speech? Why don't we do this with club level speeches? Because it's really good training. It's exhausting? You bet it is. You bet it is. Absolutely exhausting. But what good training for life? If we put that kind of focus into our club level speeches, can you imagine what a rock star you'd be at work and everywhere else, because you'd bring that level of concentration, focus, and dedication to everything that you did? Just a thought. So this is the start of the introduction that I crafted. Now, when I was giving Margaret Page, who was the MC, the instruction, the day before we met and we went over the staging and everything, she said, well, where's your introduction? I said, I don't have one. What do you mean you don't have one? I says, well, mine is a video introduction. So all I want you to do is to turn to the screen for my introduction. And that's exactly what she did. So this is my introduction.
1,000 people turn age 65. 2/3 report that they have a financial plan, but only 15% have a lifestyle plan. Freddi Dogterom has been helping people plan their futures for more than 30 years. She's a member of 4 professional organizations and is a registered retirement consultant and professional retirement planner. Freddi writes for the Current Trends publication of the Canadian Institute of Financial Planners. Her expertise has been featured in the Globe and Mail, Canada's national newspaper, and she is a guest on radio programs and a popular keynote speaker for meetings and conferences. She helps people on the cusp of retirement create exciting plans for their golden years. Her participants are folks just like you. The purpose of today's presentation is not to provide answers, but to provide a framework to start planning your fulfilling future. Please welcome Freddi Dogterom, retirement lifestyle planning expert. With your retirement prescription, it takes more than money.
Yay! Woo! And the crowd went wild. Yeah. So, what did that introduction do?
You're the expert.
I'm the expert. What else?
Very professional.
Very professional. Sounds great. Yeah, Faye Braden, a radio personality, did the voiceover. Awesome. What else did it do?
Gives you consistency.
Yes, I control that, right? Not Christina running off on some tangent, which she didn't. She did a fabulous job. Absolutely. Consistency. What else?
But you have control. That's the important.
I have control over setting
People make
the...
mistakes when they're reading it,
Yes.
and they don't necessarily put the emphasis on the right things.
Exactly. And that can make or break the start of a presentation. Yes.
It set the space.
It did. Yes. It absolutely provided credibility.
Huge credibility.
Huge cred.
In a short period of time, it was succinct.
Yes. We were allowed to have a 1-minute introduction.
Is that all that was?
That was 1 minute.
That's a lot of stuff in 1 minute.
That's 1 minute. I'll get to you in 1 second. That was 1 minute, and it took me 7 hours to get it from 3 minutes down to 1. Yeah, and tears and a massive breakdown. And yes.
It was very succinct, and you knew exactly what it was that you were coming to, what you were going to be talking about.
Yeah. And it covered everything that needed to be covered. Yeah, go ahead.
So, Freddi, did you break the norm when you did that? Like, were they kind of thrown by the fact that you did something that wasn't normal?
Kinda.
Why you got it.
Kinda.
Well, I just,
Kinda up the bar a little bit.
well, there are times, though, when that brings, everybody goes, oh.
Yeah.
There are other times when they'll actually dock you for it.
Yeah. No, this is a professional level presentation. And so I just brought my best game. Now, the year before, Darren LaCroix had done a video introduction.
Right.
Okay, he was the first one ever that had done it, but his was a video and it was a little bit different, whereas mine, I really wanted to establish that credibility because that was where I really lost in 2015.
Well, I was just going to say, you also clearly defined the purpose.
Yes.
So there was no question of what the judges would have been looking for. You said it.
That's right.
And nobody could take that away.
Absolutely. Yeah, it totally set the parameters. You're not going to get any questions answered. I'm going to have you leave here with more questions. Yeah.
What is for the 1 minute introduction, what is the speaking speed of that? How many words per minute on that?
She's speaking at the number of words that she was given to read in the script was 118. I gave it to 3 different voice personalities, had them audition. One was beautiful, sounded great and everything, but just about put me to sleep. The other one was a young fellow. He was great, but I'm not young. And so I needed it to sound like me. And so the lady who did it is roughly my age. She's a very perky individual. And I said, I want you to sound like you can hardly wait to hear me. And I think she knocked it out of the park. Yeah.
I was going to comment on that because her voice was similar, and I thought, did the people in the audience think you had done your own voiceover there? And I wondered why you maybe didn't use a male. Wasn't because I liked your answer.
Mm-hmm.
To represent yourself.
I don't know if anybody thought it was my voice. I don't know the answer to that, Iris. I certainly didn't get any feedback to that effect. But when I listened to the two male voices, a mature male and a young male, it just wasn't me. It didn't set the stage that I wanted to have set for my presentation.
No, I really liked it.
Oh, thank you.
I went right into it.
And it did. It just sort of got me launched. Yeah.
So Freddi, do you have this done in 6x9 as well? The only thing I know from experience is most things we deal with now, all monitors or most monitors 6x9. I know from working with clients myself as well, this makes it look like perhaps an intro that was done 8, 10, 12 years ago, just because of the frame, not because of content stuff, but once again, as humans, visually we look at it. So can you convert this, or
Yes.
is it able to?
I have several versions of it. And actually, I used David Saxby from CAPS, who's a visual artist guy, that he put all of my slides together for me, because I'm an amateur, right? It's like my snow shoveling. I'm an amateur. I can put slides together, but they look like I put them together, right? And so I got a professional to put my slides together in a very professional way with the transitions and everything. It was just a phenomenal slide deck that he built for me. There was a question, gentlemen, yes, sir?
Yes, you are a professional speaker and your voice is really beautiful. Why did you hire someone to voice over?
Credibility. Having somebody else introduce you. Because if I stood there and said, oh, look, I've been in the Globe and Mail. Oh, look, I've been on radio and TV. People go, yeah, you know, you're kind of arrogant. Yeah. And so having somebody else do it, which is why you always prepare an introduction for somebody else to read, right? It just feeds into that credibility. Any other questions for the moment? Yes, sir?
But at the end of the day, is it the credibility not in your 20 minutes of speaking from your subject matter? This comes across as a bit cheesy. Does the rules state that you have to have a snazzy 1 minute? Because it's all about your 20 minutes, is it not?
Yes, but part of the judging is for the introduction as well.
The content or the...
For how the content and how the introduction is portrayed.
An introduction sets up.
Yeah.
It sets you up so you are there. The audience is ready to hear what you have to say. It doesn't necessarily have to add value in any other way, but it's setting the audience up so they're now on the edge of their seat, ready to hear what that person that they believe is going to give them something important.
Yeah. Also, an introduction can give some points to the audience that you don't have time to cover in your presentation. An introduction can really save you a lot of time, but that is part of the judging criteria. So we needed to do that. Yes, sir.
This is also passively boasting too about what your capabilities are, and you might not feel comfortable doing that yourself.
Yeah.
With other voiceover, right?
Exactly. I mean, these are all things that I've done. Things that I've achieved, but it sounded much better for Faye to say them than for me to say them. Yeah. Yes, sir?
Yeah, what I liked about it is it set the expectations, and I think that was of great value.
Yes, thank you.
And using images like that, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So you had 118 words, but your images
spoke more. Yeah. Yeah. Are you about ready for a quick little break?
Sure.
All right. How long do they get there, Christina?
Say 10 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the how-to. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for coming back.
That's where I wanted to
If you didn't have a question before, you might have a question this half. Please welcome back, Freddi.
Thanks, Christina. Thank you. thank you so much for your high quality questions, both during the presentation and also at the break. I certainly welcome your questions. And if you leave this place and you're driving along Deerfoot and somebody cuts you off, you're going like, oh, I should have asked Freddi this question, email me. Okay, you've got my card, email me. Where's Nick? Nick, where'd you go? Yeah, there. Oh, sorry about that. So, you were hiding. Nick knows I'm approachable. He phoned me or he emailed me and said, hey, I want to talk to you about the accredited speaker program. And we set up a time to chat. And so we chatted. So if you've got questions of any sort, the best way of getting in touch with me is through email first. And then we'll arrange a time for having a conversation. So I'm certainly very open for that. So before the break, we got to the point where I had done my introduction, but I had also taken and had some fun with the fact that old retired people oftentimes have lots of prescription medicine. Right? One of the signs you're getting old is that you've got all of these pill containers on your dresser. And so I was putting together a model. I wanted something that was going to be memorable for people. And so this is the model that I put together. So your retirement prescription, take a pill. But pill meant something. These are the 4 top things that people entering into retirement or at retirement age are concerned about. First of all, they're concerned about their purpose. P is for purpose. What am I going to do? What's going to get me out of bed in the morning? Okay, so I talked about purpose. I is for identity. Once you leave the office and you no longer have the business card that says, hi, I'm a very important person, or the brass name tag on the door, who the heck are you? And so in my model, I talk about identity and how to reestablish your identity. And then we've got the 2 L's. Well, the first L is for legacy. And in retirement life planning, legacy is broken down into 3 parts. So the legacy that you're going to leave behind at your job, work, or occupation. Is there somebody that you can mentor? Are there procedures you should be writing down? The second legacy then is our stuff, right? The family stuff. The family Bible, Granny's China, whatever it is. What are you going to do with your stuff? So I had some good hints for people what to do with their personal legacy. And then the third element, and this is the one that really got a buzz going in the room, was your digital legacy. And I'm guessing some of you might not have thought about your digital legacy. You do online banking, you've got Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and all of these other things that I don't understand. Have you legally dealt with your electronic identity in your last will and testament so that when you are no longer with us, we're not getting the things say, hey, guess what? Freddi's celebrating 20 years. No, she's been gone for 10, right? And so without having it legally established with somebody specifically in charge, ideally somebody under 30, just saying, you can't close your accounts. And so when I brought up that piece of legacy, you could hear the ooh, ah in the audience. And then the second L in the pill model was the legend. And I talked about how we're losing our family stories. And that unless you're First Nations, you came from somewhere else. Do you know your family story? What can you do? So I crafted this model from the years of workshops that I had done and just had some fun with the fact that us old geezers take lots of pills. And people remember the pill model. So it's purpose, identity, legacy, and legend. Somebody also asked, well, how do you, tape yourself and everything? I've got an iPhone, but you could use an Android. I have the little grip grabber here that I just put my iPhone in, and I have the most magical thing. This is called a Hey Mic. It's a Bluetooth microphone. And so I turn this on, put it on, and I've got my iPhone going. I can be 30 feet away from my iPhone, and I still get recorded crystal clear. So that's how the pros do it.
Hey what?
Hey Mike.
How do you spell hey?
Actually, it's Love Hey Mike. So it's love, HEYMIC.com. LoveHeyMike.
L-O-V-E.
Yes, LoveHeyMIC MOUSE. Yeah, and it comes from England. They're sometimes you can get them on sales between $150 and $200, but they are worth their weight in gold. And so at club level now, we videotape everybody's speech, ed session, everything all the time. Because I'm practicing doing video editing, I do the editing and then I send it to the individual. They're encouraged to watch it, and then we have a feedback meeting, whether it's your icebreaker or whether you're doing advanced stuff. So this is just something I'm throwing out that might be helpful at whatever Toastmaster your stage are at. But this Hey Mike has really made it easy to do, because you're not wired, and it's just Bluetooth, so it works pretty darn good. All right, shall we get into some how-to? How to become an accredited speaker. All right, first of all, ask yourself, do you want to become a professional speaker? Are you speaking at the professional level, or are you aspiring to be a professional speaker? Because the accredited speaker program is only open to paid professional speakers. Okay? So that's the first question to ask yourself. Now, if this is something that you want on your career trajectory, fantastic, because you can start now. Because you have to have been at the paid level for 3 years before you can put your first entry into level 1. So are you already getting paid to speak? Now, here's the cool thing about the accredited speaker program, and that is they don't ask how much. Okay? There isn't, for the certified speaking professional with the professional speakers, you have to be earning like $50,000 a year, right, to even enter the CSP. But there isn't an amount. Now, in fairness, when you put your application in, you have to say who I spoke for, how many in the audience, this is how much I got paid. And if everything was like $1, you might not pass, all right? But sometimes I speak for an honorarium, okay? That counts, right? Sometimes I get a full fee. That really counts. That's nice. Okay? So start tracking, and I'll show you where you can get the forms, etc. But even if you're just starting out, maybe you're doing the pits, but somebody says, well, here's $100, or, your honorarium is $200 or $500. It counts. Okay? It can count. Toastmasters. Are you maximizing your Toastmaster membership, which means, are you taking every opportunity that Toastmasters has for you? Are you giving manual speeches? Are you doing feedback? Are you mentoring? Are you entering contests? Are you a club officer? Are you a district officer? Are you maximizing your membership? Because the more you get into it, the more you'll get out of it. So really maximize your involvement with Toastmasters, and you just won't regret it. Yeah, the logo. Every Toastmaster journey begins with a single speech. When I first joined Toastmasters, I joined a club that was in the process of chartering. And because I'd already been speaking at the professional level, I wasn't dreadfully nervous, but Toastmasters was kind of intimidating because it was new tools in my toolbox. And if you've never used a screwdriver before, you're a little awkward with it. And so I gave my icebreaker speech, and unfortunately the evaluator didn't evaluate the speech. He criticized my content. He disagreed with what I was saying. And that's what the feedback was. So I went home and I said to myself, this Toastmaster thing, is this for me? And I thought, well, you can't let one chicken dinner ruin Christmas, right? And so I went back. Now, that club did not charter, but I found the club that I'm in now, and I'm really quite delighted. So the quality of club is important, and each and every one of us has the responsibility to make sure that our clubs are quality clubs. But every journey begins with a speech, even if it's a bad experience. You know, it's like getting to the World Championship, right? It starts with one speech. And I know that for some clubs, good luck getting out of the club, never mind anywhere else, right? Yeah. Oh, man.
Next week, come watch.
I will if I can. Okay, I have given you a handout, and this is some of the rules and regulations and everything, but Toastmasters International, on their website, if you search in accredited speaker, they have all of the forms and everything you need there. I did not print out all of the forms. I printed out some of the forms, but the actual application form is not here. It's a 6-page application, and it's online. So why would somebody want to be an accredited speaker? For me, it was a personal goal. And for many of my accredited speaker colleagues, it was a personal goal because it is such a rigorous process that I knew that as I went through it, win, lose, or draw, I came out of it a better speaker. It's like entering contests, right? Win, lose, or draw, you come out of that contest a much better speaker. This is just sort of a bigger contest. And so I wanted it for as my personal goal. I am a distinguished Toastmaster. Some of you in the room I know have more than one. I'm an underachiever. I've only got 1.5. But I'm working on it. I'm looking forward to Pathways. You guys looking forward to Pathways? Yeah, I want a Pathways DTM. I think that's going to be very, very cool. This just talking a little bit about how since 1981, only 75 people have achieved the accredited speaker designation. In some years, people have presented and nobody has passed. This year, there were 7 of us presented and 6 of us passed, which was unheard of. Prior to that, 3 was the maximum. And as the word gets out, we're hoping that more and more and more people will get designated as accredited speakers. It is the highest earned speaking credential in the world. And it's a credential, and it's a credentialed world we have, right? And so when people, even outside of Toastmasters, you say, well, I'm an accredited speaker, and they say, what does that mean? Well, I'm one of the top 75 professional speakers in the world. Oh, well, you speak for free? Yeah. The cool thing is that, yes, sir?
So with the accredited speaker and 75 people, I mean, I'm glad that they're being very stringent about, the process to go through. But with that small number, Freddi, does that also mean that Toastmasters is perhaps not doing a good job of promoting it and getting more people to move towards it?
Brilliant question, and yes. We almost lost the accredited speaker program in about 2008. And Cheryl Rausch and Bob Huey sat down with Dan Rex, who is the CEO of Toastmasters International, and said, hey, this is a good thing. We can't lose it because we do have Toastmasters that are professionals or aspiring professionals, and we're the speaking organization. What can we do? And so it was Cheryl Rausch and Bob Huey that were really instrumental in getting the legs under the program. Now, the program changed significantly in 2005 because prior you did not have to already be a paid professional. You had to be an aspiring paid professional. But in 2005, they put in that you had to be already getting paid. And then in 2013, they changed it. And last year, in 2017, they changed the judging, how the judging was done, and I'll talk about that. But you're absolutely right. They were doing a dismal job of promoting it, and we almost lost it.
Or at least they didn't go the other way and lessen the procedure to get in.
That's right. In fact, they tightened it up. They tightened it up. Yeah, the great question. So less than 1% of the applicants get the credential. So it is pretty rigorous, and it's 2-level, and we'll talk about that. So if you are right now paid as a speaker, lecturer, or trainer, maybe you do seminars and workshops, maybe you're not a keynote speaker, you can qualify. Do you get paid for the workshops you do? Do you speak as part of your job? Right? So maybe Fluor hires you and you're their corporate trainer. Maybe, right? And there's some rules around it, but maybe that would qualify for you. Yes, sir.
Sorry, Freddie.
That's okay.
So as somebody that is a trainer now, and that's their expectations, what they'd like to do, for that 20-minute application process and speaking, can they do a training type?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. You do what you do. Yeah, you do what you do. Yeah. So let's take a look at some of the rules. We're going to talk a little bit about the judge's guide because it's pretty hard to know how you're judged unless you know what the judges are looking at. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the insights and support. Some of it I've already covered. So taking a look at the rules, okay? This is the website, okay? Toastmasters International, and you look at the accredited speaker. Everything you need to know is there. Now I just need to grab my glasses. But if you take a look at your handout, okay, it says program rules. These are not suggestions. As I found out. These are not suggestions. Okay. So it talks about, who is eligible. You have to be a Toastmaster, obviously. And you have to have earned either the Able Toastmaster. Now, sometimes you go like, Able Toastmasters, that's older than Moses. Well, guess what? Some Toastmasters are. We've got Toastmasters that have been around since 1804, right? We've got people that have been long-term Toastmasters. And so you Able Toastmaster, Advanced Toastmaster Bronze, or Advanced Communicator Bronze. That's where you need to be at. So if you haven't achieved that yet, that's okay. That can be your first goal. Okay, I've got my CC. Great. Okay, now you need to go up to the bronze level. You need to have given a minimum of 25 speaking engagements to non-Toastmaster audiences within the last 3 years. So it can be spread over the 3 years, or quite honestly, it can be all in 1 year. Right? Within the last 3 years, 25 engagements to non-Toastmaster audiences. Of those, 20 of them, you must receive compensation. You must be paid for 20 of them.
Do they care what the subject matter is?
No. I'll get into that. That's part of the application. No, they do not. So the first thing you do is that you would do your level 1 application. This is the starting point. Applications can be sent in between the 1st of January and the 28th of February each year. And so if you're thinking now of putting in for next year, this is the perfect time to start because it gives you a year to get your level 1. With level 1, you need to submit a videotape of you giving one of your presentations to a non-Toastmaster audience. Okay, so,
presentation?
Pardon me?
Full presentation?
Kind of. That's where this little gadget and my Hey Mike comes in, or the handsome man at the back of the room. Yay? Yay! All right. As a rule of thumb, if you're wanting to get better, videotape everything that you do. And watch yourself. And watch yourself. And tape and watch yourself. Turn the sound off and watch yourself. You'll be amazed at how many bizarre mannerisms you have. Yeah, picking your nose, flipping your hair. Oh, gee, I was listening to a presentation one time, and this guy had a PhD in something important, and he's standing there, and he kept putting his hand in his pocket and adjusting. I'm going like, there's 500 people in the audience. Like, why are you doing that? And he kept doing it over and over. I'm thinking, Buckshot, you should really watch yourself. But he had nobody taping his presentation, and he still might be doing it to this day. So just saying, you want to really watch yourself. You're going to submit with the application form, and there are some rules around the videotape, and I'll get to that in just a moment. You submit and then you wait until about April when you will then get a letter that either says, we regret to inform you, or congratulations, you can now move on to level 2. Once you have passed at level 1, you get 3 tries at level 2. Some people make it on the first, some people make it on the second, some people make it on the third, some people do not. Okay? So the level 1 is the kicker. Yes?
So if you don't make it on 3 tries, you're not allowed to do it again?
No, you go back to level 1. Then you have to go back and reapply as if you had never done it before. Okay? So you've got the program rules here, and I'm trusting that you can read them. Okay? So it talks about, on the second page there, how to apply. So now we get into the nitty-gritty. And again, none of this is negotiable. All right? So the 25 speaking engagements to non-Toastmaster audiences with the application package, there's a tracking sheet for you. But I would use an Excel spreadsheet or whatever software you use and track everything, because what you're wanting to do is put in your 25 best, right? Your biggest audiences, maybe a prestigious organization, maybe you are talking to Rotary International, their Canadian convention, or the $1 Million Round Table, or, whatever. So you want to track everything. Your presentations must be a minimum of 20 minutes in length, every presentation. So let's say you go and talk to the Rotary lunch, and it's only 15 minutes, it doesn't count. Your presentation must be a minimum of 20 minutes. 15, I misspoke earlier. I said 20, and I've heard it's changing to 20, but it's still 15. 15 of those 25 engagements must be paid engagements. They do not specify the amount, but if everything's at $1, I'm thinking you won't pass. Okay? But an honorarium here or there is perfectly acceptable. There must be an audience size minimum of 20 for each of those. So if you're doing a workshop for 10 people, even if you're paid for it, it doesn't count. So your audience must be a minimum of 20. Yes?
So the presentation, you're saying if it was 15 minutes and there was some question periods that dragged on after, that doesn't, it still has to be.
It's the presentation. It's a presentation piece. Yeah. You must submit a link to your video presentation as part of your application. So probably what you would do is upload it to YouTube or one of those sites and provide the link with your application so that the judges can then go in and watch the presentation that you're sending in.
Would you recommend putting it on your website if you are speaking and have a link from your website, even if you're using YouTube?
Yeah, you can do, because it probably has to be on YouTube before it gets to your website anyhow.
Make sure they don't have to go look for it.
That's right. Make it easy. Make it easy. Yeah. You also have to have 5 written recommendations from clients, from 5 different clients, people that have hired you. And what you do is you talk to them and say, this is what I'm doing, and I would really like it if you would fill out this document. You don't see it. You give them an envelope, and it goes directly to World Headquarters. So make sure, it's sort of like a job reference, right? And so make sure that, they are going to give you a good reference. And on the letter, on the form, and it's on the website, what kind of presentation, how big was the audience, so they know if you lied on your tracking sheet. Did you pay them? Would you hire them again? Would you refer them to somebody else? Right? They want to know that you are a very good speaker and that you had, a good presence with this particular client. You also send in a $100 US, okay, so only do it years where our money is worth something. $100 US, non-refundable, goes in with your application. Josephine.
When you say that everything got to be paid,
yeah.
What happened if it's paid in kind?
No, cash. Taxable income. Yes, no, not in kind. Now for the other, for the other ones you sure can. But you have to have 15 where you get currency. Yeah. Okay? And then that's what you do, you submit it. Now, your application form, they want to know your area of expertise. You'll need to tell them about your presentation, who you were presenting to, who was the audience, what was your purpose. And that's all on the application form that is on the website. It's a very, very detailed, don't try to minimize, right, or take shortcuts on your application. Because the application as well as the video link goes to the judges. And level 1 judging is very, very rigorous. Here's some things about your video. I can't remember if the next slide covers that or not. Okay, that's just from the handout that I've given you. Who's eligible? Sometimes I forget that I've got slides. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay. With the video, it cannot be edited. It is a raw video, which is why you might not want it on your website. Okay? The raw video includes the introduction and your presentation. The introduction isn't timed, but your presentation that you send in for level 1 judging must be a minimum of 20 minutes and a maximum of 45 minutes. If it's 45 minutes and 30 seconds, you will be disqualified.
So do you just cut it off if it's an hour, 15-minute keynote?
What you do is you structure an opportunity. You structure an opportunity where you can give a 45, because you need to have your opening, your body, and your conclusion. It has to be a complete.
So then, Freddi, going back to that expertise, and I know a few other people in this room, depending on your audience and who you're speaking to, I do have a couple areas of expertise. Now, obviously, when I go to do my 20-minute, it has to be defined and stuff, but in this presentation, can I list that 6 were about strength and 4 were about improvement, and or are they looking for a theme throughout the entire 20?
They are in the level 1 video. They are looking for a complete professional presentation between the 20 and 45 minutes. Now, what I have seen, I've seen people say, well, here's the 5 points about strength, right? Today we're talking about 3. Right?
Yeah, no, the video I understand it needs to be one presentation, one time, full, up to 45, but in the written component, Russ, you're the same, you have a couple topics you'll speak on, right? So in those 25, right, and they want the written description of your expertise, I'm not going to necessarily speak all 25 times on that particular.
Oh, and that's fine. Oh, yes. I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. Yes, so in your 25 presentations, they could be on 25 different topics or variations of a theme, but
make sure the video is one, and when you get ready to level 2, that you're going to present on one theme, be the expert of that theme, etc.
Yes. Because as a professional, it's not unusual that we customize our topics, right? But for the video, 20 to 45 minutes. Okay? Okay. So why do candidates disqualify? First of all, if you miss a section, you will be disqualified. If you forget to put your address down, you will be disqualified. If you say, this isn't important, you will be disqualified. There just isn't wiggle room, okay? If your video is too long, this is one of the most common reasons that people are disqualified. If your video is too long. The other one is if it's too short. If it's 19 minutes, back of the bus, baby. Yeah. So they're very, very rigorous, which is why the program is a good program to be part of. If you do webinars, teleseminars, online, Zoom, Skype, blah, 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 no, they don't count. Electronic presence does not count in the program. They have to be live, face-to-face, me-to-you presentations.
That'll change with practice?
No. I don't think it will, because this isn't linked to pathways, right? Because the pathways is the competency, right? This is the professional track. Yes, sir?
Even if they're paid?
Even if they're paid, because they're not face-to-face.
Okay. So video mediated isn't face-to-face?
No.
Well, you don't know if you've got 20 people present if you're
Exactly. CMC isn't face-to-face, computer-mediated conferencing or whatever. No.
No Bitcoin?
No Bitcoin. Yeah, you can pay your taxes with Bitcoin now. No. So some of the questions that you have to answer on your application is your education and professional background. Okay? What qualifies you to speak on these topics? What special awards or recognition? And these include Toastmaster awards, right? Have you won this, that, or the other thing? Are you a distinguished Toastmaster? Have you been district governor of the year? Whatever your awards are. Outside of Toastmaster, have you got awards and recognition? List them all. This is not a time to be modest, okay? Just list them all. It is what it is. And you'll also have to write a few words about how has Toastmasters benefited you, right? As you've moved into or morphed into your professional realm, how has Toastmasters helped you? Well, it's probably hard to limit it to only one paragraph, but they want to know that. And then the magical question is why? Why do you want to pursue being an accredited speaker?
Is there a time frame on those awards?
No. Now, if you are a person that has achieved a lot, I'd probably, not include my 4-H and, Sunday school, things like that. But, they do.
If you had 10 years of Toastmasters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay. Your area of expertise. Now, this is sometimes where people get hung up because, like several of us, I know, have more than one area of expertise, right? But how do you then synthesize it? My area of expertise is I build people. That's what I do. I build people. And I do many different things to do it, but that's my expertise. And then to break it down into, through coaching, through mentoring, through, whatever. But your area of expertise, this is something to really think about. Also, what kind of presentations do you give? Do you do keynotes? Do you do workshops? Do you do seminars? Do you do retreats? And you might do them all. But just, write down what are the kinds of things that you do. And who is the audience that you most typically present to? Is it community groups? Are they associations? Are they conferences, couples retreats, youth, schools?
I was going to say, does it have to be adults?
No. Okay, so start thinking about some of your typical audiences. And again, this is just sort of reiterating, but what kind of live presentations? And again, nothing electronic, right? So keynotes and plenary sessions, they count. Breakouts or concurrent sessions. You go to a conference and you're doing the breakout or you're doing one of the concurrents. That counts. Public seminars and workshops. So maybe you advertise in the paper, I'm doing a workshop on so-and-so and everybody pays to come. That counts, right? Public sessions count. And facilitating retreats counts. So you think about it, you've got live people there and you're live in front of them. That's the kind of stuff that counts. Non-Toastmaster audiences, right? Okay. All right, so how do you track your progress? Well, with the application form, there is a sheet that comes, and I didn't copy that for you, but I did give you a copy of what's on the screen right now. And what it does is it helps you to keep on track with getting your things together for the application. So, do you have business cards or a website, that professional presence? Have you earned your ATM or your bronze? Have you downloaded the application? Have you asked for a mentor? Have you got a spreadsheet? 25 plus speaking engagements, professional videotape, submitting your level 1, and it just helps you keep on track. I found this to be really, really valuable for all of my attempts when, I was trying to remember, had I done this or when had I done that? Okay, so that's a very valuable form. This is the form that's in the application package. And again, it just shows you how to keep track, right? The name of the client. Did you get a letter of recommendation from them? What was the program length? What was your fee received? And how many people were in the audience? Okay?
It doesn't even ask what you spoke about.
Nope. But for your own tracking, it's a good idea to track what your topic was. Yeah. Okay. Now, why is it that when the judges watch the video that sometimes people don't pass? So they've got the length, they've got everything done. Well, sometimes speeches are very poorly structured, or they're poorly organized. They are looking for very clear, easy to follow structure, great transitions between point after point. They're looking for audience engagement. And you might ask yourself, well, that's kind of goofy. You're looking for raw footage and you can't edit it and you've got a single camera, right? But if you position it in such a way that, maybe you're getting the backs of people's heads, make sure you've got their permission, or at least the sound. They're laughing at your jokes or they're gasping at your stories. So that sense of audience engagement. Your delivery and energy. You are being evaluated at a professional level. So what is your, what is the choreography of your movement, right? Are you doing the caged tiger? Are you doing the Adam and Eve? Are you doing all of these Toastmastery things that we learn not to do, right? That is being looked at. Visible aids. Now, if you use visual aids, okay, make sure that it shows up. If you use PowerPoint slides, make sure you send a copy or a link to where the slides are so that the judges can actually see your slides. Because sometimes they don't show up in a video. So your slide deck would then go with your application or the link to your slide deck. Yes, sir?
On some videos, when there's a slideshow included, I put in a quarter panel up in the top right of the slideshow, but it's edited.
Mm-hmm. That would disqualify you. Yep. Yeah, I mean, that would be awesome, but that would disqualify you for doing that. And poor quality. The reason that I failed in 2005 was because the audio quality was very, very poor. I didn't have the right equipment. And because I knew what I was saying, I could understand what I was saying, but if you didn't know what I was saying, you couldn't understand it.
Does everybody use PowerPoint?
No, you don't have to. That's right. You should go online and you can watch all of the accredited speakers from this year. One fellow, Joe Grondin from New Brunswick, yeah, he had all his hats. Yeah, he was really cool. He was talking about the cerebral processing of yes, that's right, Joe in the magazine, of teenagers. It was so cool, and he had all of these hats. And Donnie Crandall had, magic money. And yeah, you don't have to use PowerPoint. You can use whatever it is you normally use. Okay. This talks a little bit about the video recording. We've talked about most of it, and it is in the guidelines that you can find online. So you want to make sure that your entire presentation is on the recording. Don't just stop it because it's 45 minutes, okay? Lack of clear organization, again, the opening body conclusion, they're looking for that full meal deal. If editing of the recording appears to have been done, you're done, okay? So they're very, very strict about that. Any questions about the video? All of this information is on the accredited speaker site. Yes?
Is the introduction part of your 45 minutes?
No, it is not. No. It needs to be on the video, but the clock starts when you start. Yes, sir.
If the introduction is one piece and then no, it's start to finish.
Unedited.
Okay.
Yes, unedited. So, and again, it talks ad nauseum about the quality of the video because this is the primary reason that people are failing level 1. Okay? So let's take a look at what the judges are actually looking for. So I've given you copies, and they're available online. But this is what the judges are looking for. So they're looking for the audience response, right? Can you hear or see the audience responding, engaging, or interacting with the speaker? The speech development. Was there structure? Did it make sense? Did it build? Were there clear transitions? And the value of the speech. The ideas, the logic, or the originality. Where I ran afoul of the one judge, that she just couldn't follow my Inukshuk speech. Everybody else could, but she couldn't. And, the fact of the matter was, if she couldn't, I failed, period. For the criteria, the physical, the appearance, body language, etc. One of the presenters that I watched one year failed because they didn't look professional. They didn't look professional. And I have to tell you, I even debated wearing sparkly jeans, but I thought it's Calgary, of course you wear jeans. I even debated about that, and I thought, no, but I'd never wear them on a stage. And so, the professional attire, your voice is evaluated, your language, your choice of words, your articulation, your enunciation, your inflection. Your platform style. Do you own that platform? Are you comfortable? Is it your space? Okay, you're being judged on that. Taking a look at the language criteria. Appropriateness of language. I actually heard a candidate use vulgarity. And it just rearranged several of my molecules. Seriously? You can't do that. You wouldn't do it anyhow, but especially not when you're being judged. Correct pronunciation, grammar, etc. What do we learn in Toastmasters, right? Correct pronunciation, grammar, etc. Flipping over to the other page, they added up, and you have to score pretty high.
Yes. All right.
You have to score pretty darn high.
What did you score?
I can't tell you. But here's the first comment. Freddi rocked. This was an interesting presentation, kept my interest. Planning is important. And because you actually get the judges' comments. But I don't have my score, Russ. I'm thinking probably 100, 101, As long as it was over 85, I don't care. Yeah. The judges' feedback was very, very strong and positive and great. So I'm guessing I didn't just skin in. However, the other, I might have been 84 or less, but I got some very, very valuable feedback in 2015. So that's what the judging criteria is. This is for both level 1 and level 2. Same criteria. Now, they made an interesting change this year. Up until 2016, what they would do, the judges would, fill out their judges' ballots, and then they would go away and they would have a conference. And they would talk about the scores and talk about, well, do you think Matt made it, and they would have a conversation. This year, for the very first time, it was more like a contest. The judges just did their thing, handed them in. So there was no consultation. So I don't know if that's better or worse. It's just different. Just different. One thing it did take away, and that was no judge could lobby for a particular speaker or other. And I'm not saying it happened. I don't know if it did or not, but I'm just saying it took away that potential. And so it was more like a contest with the accredited speakers being announced immediately rather than having to spend all night knowing that you didn't make it. So
if one speaker or if one judge gave you 79, you're done.
Done.
So every single one had to pass you.
Yes.
So if one gave you 99 and one gave you 79, it didn't matter.
That's right. Yes, sir.
So you got the phone call saying you had made it and you had to try and keep a straight face?
No, they had changed it this year. We were all sitting in a row, and they announced it right then. But here's the thing, there was 7 of us, 6 of us made it. So I'm thinking that getting the phone call and having to sit on it overnight was really better for my ego than sitting there being the only one that didn't go up on stage. Yeah. But again, what's the right way? Right? They've got to try some different things. Yeah. And so this is the newest one here, the 2 minutes. Instead of 1 minute, it's 2 minutes for the judges. Majority vote, 3 out of 5 in favor. And what they have to be saying is, would you hire or recommend this speaker? That's make or break. Yeah.
Do they judge you on content?
Sorry.
Do they judge you on content? Like,
Yes.
if they don't like the content?
Not so much the content, but again, it's the flow, the appropriateness to the audience, which is why in my introduction I said, you are a Canadian between the ages of 50 and 65. Right? That was the part that Margaret said. And so I set up the audience. And so it has to be, appropriate to the audience. It has to be new or unique information, right? Unique to you. There is another.
The judges have 2 minutes after listening to 20 minutes.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of a different way of doing it. Now, I don't want to go too far over time, so just this is what your feedback sheet looks like, and it's emailed to you about 2 weeks later. You get it. What pass or fail, you get the feedback, which is really excellent.
You get that each one of the judges?
It's compiled. Yeah. Ma'am, you had a question?
I was just going to ask, how has this advanced your career?
Specifically, has it brought me more paid speaking opportunities? Not yet. But what it has done is that I am a way better speaker. And I'm also absolutely anal about how I prepare for speeches. And so that whole notion of that purposeful practice and the coaching, that just got embedded in me. And everything I do now, I bring that level of preparation with it, and I think it's only going to help.
You're providing better value to your clients.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But much better value for my clients. Now, what my goal is that in the next 10 years, I would like to speak at 100 different districts around the world. I would just sort of like to become a total Toastmaster junkie. And just go and speak at district conferences, like, D42 coming up in the spring. I get to be the keynote. I mean, what an honor, what a privilege. That's very, very cool. And I'd like to do that another 99 times. So I'm just sending my goal out, right? Just like you say, I want to be a professional speaker, find me opportunities, great, send it out to the universe. I want to travel the world with Toastmasters, going to different districts. So that's what my goal is. Are there any other questions? Comments? Observations? Go ahead.
What kind of marketing do you do? Social media, website, word of mouth? I mean, what's working for you there?
What works for me personally is word of mouth. That is, I probably get 85+% of my business from word of mouth. I do have a website, I do social media. You know, I'm of the generation, I wasn't born with a chip in my hand, and I struggle with that, and I know I should do better, but right now, 85% of my business comes from word of mouth. And so, yeah, I do Facebook, and I, have the website and everything, but I'm struggling to keep up with that, quite frankly. That's not my strength.
And just an additional question. Do
Yes.
you do a blog or vlog?
I have, and I should, but I don't. For me, it's a time commitment. This last year, apart from the fact that I'm also a full-time paid professional speaker, so I'm traveling and doing that a lot, every spare second went into preparing for my accredited speaker presentation. I just put everything, I put my life on hold. And the last month, I did nothing else but the accredited speaker. When I came home, I was exhausted, and I did nothing for 6 weeks, absolutely nothing. And then I sort of started picking myself up. Yeah.
Freddi, from the stage, do you do a callback to future bookings, or do you do a reminder that you're...
Sometimes. Yeah. Depends on the audience. It depends on the topic, yes.
Okay. And do you have any backup room sales?
No.
Okay.
Am I working on it? Yes.
What are you working on?
I'm working on... This is so cool. I'm working on my pill book. It's a mini book. Oh, yeah, my little pill book. I mean, I have been part of compilation books, and I've been quoted in other books, etc. And I used to sell those back of the room, but I stopped doing it because, again, only maybe 5% of your audience will purchase, and that's a lot of weight to lug around. But for my mini pill books, I'm going to be doing cool stuff as well as ebooks, etc. I do have workbooks for the retirement planning that are part of the program, not sold independently. Yes, sir?
Sorry, Freddi, quickly, back to the process, the 25 speeches. If you're somebody that's fortunate enough to have repeat clients, or you're a seminar or facilitator, keynote, and you speak to a company a number of times, are multiple speeches from a single company?
Yes,
dates,
yes.
And a separate letter for each time?
Yes.
Or a letter speaking to each time?
No.
Okay.
Treat them as if they are individual clients, yes. Yeah. You had a question?
Does the back of the room sales, so if you're not getting paid for your speaking, but you're selling books or selling a service?
No. No.
Because that's a challenge. There's lots of speakers like myself who want to get out there, and it seems that the better way to get paid is to get paid for your service rather than paid for your actual speaking. So,
yeah.
How do you recommend to get actual paid?
Get at least an honorarium. Get at least an honorarium, and then do your back of room sales.
Have the client buy 20 books and give them out to members in the room, because it's.
No.
No, can't do
No,
it.
no. Nope, sorry, that doesn't count. Yes, sir?
How much you can define how much they have to pay you for a speech?
How do you define that?
Is there references or?
No. Part of it is establishing your own value and worth, which is an exercise in itself. What are you comfortable asking? Are you comfortable asking 500, 1,000, 5,000? What are you comfortable asking? Where do you place the value of what you have to offer? Secondly, taking a look at the client or organization, right? What is their budget, right? And there's entire courses on how to, set your fees, etc. But there's no rule of thumb. There's no hard and fast rules about that. Yes?
What if you're doing a series with the same audience?
That's kind of like what Marshall was saying, is that you would then you would treat them as each individual presentation. Yeah. So, Monday you're talking about cat hair macrame. Tuesday you're talking about the declining birth rate of the Mesopotamian giant sea turtle. And Wednesday, you're talking about Are great topics, eh?
No, I'm talking more about spirituality.
Uh-huh.
You're building from one class to another.
Mm-hmm. But they're standalone classes, aren't they?
That's why I'm asking.
Standalone classes. Yeah, standalone classes. Yeah.
So Freddi, just for Toastmasters here, because I know we've had current members and past members ask the group on a Saturday to come, and they pay $10, $20 for that. That is on the weekend. Is that considered Toastmasters?
That's a Toastmaster audience. Unless, of course, you have public. See, if it's a public seminar, right. If it's only open to Toastmasters, it's a Toastmaster audience.
Yeah, that's what they've done. Is bring your friends or suggest to others or, okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir?
It's as far as remuneration, it's sort of like what the market will bear for yourself.
That's a way of looking at it.
Are you changing lives or are you changing diapers? If you're changing lives, I think that you can.
Mind you, to a baby, if you're changing diapers, that's pretty valuable. Just saying.
And everybody else in the room.
Yeah. So everybody has my business card, or there's business cards. If you have questions after this session, please don't hesitate to get in touch. If you are interested in the Accredited Speaker Program, on the accreditedspeakers.com website, these are the list of the accredited speakers that are available to be mentors and advisors. So you can contact any one of those people because they've said, yeah, we are here for you. See, as accredited speakers, we want you to be part of this wonderful group, because we really believe that you as professionals and emerging professionals will just fly once you put yourself through the discipline and the joys and tears of the Accredited Speaker Program. Madame?
We could be here for another 2 hours. We obviously have lots of questions, and there's people who've been inspired in the room. If you didn't read the article, the part that was highlighted, if you fail, try again and learn along the way. Freddi Dogterom. I think that's outstanding, but if we go one step further, when we learn and we take that and teach, that is really, really valuable. So from all of us, Freddi, we want to thank you so much for teaching us this evening. Before we end, this was sponsored by MVP, and we're really grateful for the people who are not MVP members that were here. John McDonald is our president, and just before we leave, I'd like him to finish with some comments. So please welcome John.
Thank you, Freddi. One more time. This has been an amazing evening. Yes?
Yes.
That was just a little yes. This has been an amazing evening, yes?
Yes.
There we go. That's a little bit stronger. MVP appreciates Freddi coming, appreciates all of you for coming, and we would like to invite you to come on a more regular basis. If you're interested in becoming a member here, please talk to me after, and we can start that process as well. But also, there are some people that we need to thank for hosting this event. Number one, could Christina Cruz please stand up? Brent, run away. Okay. Josephine. I'd also like to thank Matt, not just for being the Sergeant-at-Arms tonight, but he and Fleur are responsible for the printing and the venue and a lot of the other good stuff. Matt, thank you. And the man at the back of the room. Everybody turn around. And I believe that concludes our wonderful evening.
2 hours and 38 minutes to get your application in for this year, February 28th.
Yeah, that's right.
Marshall, but who's counting?
That's right. I have to go.
All right. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you,
Have a safe day.